Hello and welcome to another episode of the Construction Corner Podcast. I'm Dylan. I'm your host, joined by my blue collar badass. And I don't feel like talking about the weather this week, man. But how are your jobs going, Matt?
Jobs are going pretty damn good. We're kind of on almost to the finish line on a couple big ones, and we're still at the starting line on our really big project for this year. But things are moving, man. Despite what's going on outside, and despite the where the trucks are, we're still getting materials as we need them right now.
Yeah, they're still in Canada, are they?
They're in Canada. They're on the bridge. They're in Detroit. We'll see what happens there.
Yeah,
Cool.
I saw a huge line.
Cool side note, though. We actually signed up our first intern today on that program I started a few months back. So now I got to figure out what the hell to do with this kid. He starts in like 3 weeks.
Dude, that's awesome. That's awesome. And just as a little quick side note before I introduce our guest today, guys, if you haven't been following Matt and his example in posting pictures of job sites and progress updates, basically like you do for your owners every week, Matt's doing that on LinkedIn and across Facebook, Instagram, all that kind of stuff. Really good example for you guys to take on how you can keep really everybody apprised at how projects are going, how jobs are going, and really just show off your projects as they're getting built in the wonderful world of construction. So little side note there.
Thank you, sir.
But to introduce our guest today is Chris Murphy, who is the owner of Blueberry Home Services on the South Shore of Massachusetts, 30 miles south of Boston, which I'm guessing is a completely different world from Boston down there. I know it doesn't take far to get outside the city to be a whole different world, but there are premium plumbing and HVAC solutions for residential. So a little bit different world that you're in now, and especially coming from the commercial side to residential. It's a good direction to go, or an easier direction, I should say, in some regards, and more difficult in others. But Chris, welcome to the show.
I appreciate you guys having me on today. I'm super excited about having this conversation here.
Absolutely, man. Glad to have you. So let's just kick right in, because I was going to hold off on this question, but you said it when we were chatting earlier. I don't know if it's typical or not, but in my mind, it's typical when guys they start in residential at some point, and then they gradually migrate into commercial. You took the opposite approach, right? Why don't you tell us a little bit about that and kind of how you got on that path, and what led you to start in commercial, and then what led you out of commercial to residential?
Yeah, so I have a pretty unique, I think it's unique to me anyway, story. But my father was a plumber, commercial plumber. I never wanted to be a plumber in my life. He would drag me out of bed on Saturdays and all that, kicking and crying. I never wanted to do that job. That job sucked. And I went to parochial school my whole life, getting ready for college. And I'd always said I was going to be a businessman, this, that, the next thing, never going to be a plumber. And junior year of high school, I was like, I don't really know if college is for me, Not that I had bad grades or anything. Something in my head said, maybe there's something else for you, I wrote an essay about how you should learn to work with your hands to some degree. Graduated high school, told my old man, I said, hey, I want to get into the plumbing trade, At that point, he was actually a union plumber in Boston. And I said, I want to get in the union, because I knew that's where the big bucks were, right? And he said, yeah, he goes, we'll get you there eventually, but he goes, I'm not putting my name on you right now. The union's what the union is, right? Like we all know you got to know somebody, right? And so I had to go out, and he said, go do a year, make sure you want to do this before I put my name on you. And went out, worked for a couple small shops, doing this, that, the next thing. Following year, kind of put my application into, it was local 12 in Boston, got in, and started my apprenticeship in the union. And I did every job from 30-story high rise. A lot of it was hospital work. I did my first 5 years was the apprenticeship around here. I did with one company. I left that company after I got my license, just on good terms, looking for greener pastures. Moved on to the next company. I did small projects for this company. Small projects for this company were $1 million and under. And my main my main focus was working at Mass General Hospital, and that's where I had myself and a crew of guys there. We did killer work. We did mainly the hospital work, but we bounced out and do other projects. I had a great job. My company was awesome. I worked for. I just had a disagreement with one of the big dogs in the company. You know, we had there's a foreman project manager Christmas party every year. You know, we'll have a couple drinks, have some food, conversate, have a good time, and it was hey, you and this guy shouldn't talk tonight. I said, all right, no problem. And it seems like all night we were just making the rounds, never meeting once, and then, you know, the last hour of the party was like, hey, how you doing? And conversation went south, and in my mind I had always known, like, not that he was a bad guy, but I could say it was green, he said it was blue, right? Didn't matter what it was, we just never were gonna agree. I was oil, he was water. And it kind of came push to shove. I said, listen, I'm done. I said, I'm pulling the plug on this. I'm gonna go on my own, right? And I didn't tell him I was going on my own. I said, I'm just done working here. I handed the keys over, instantly regretted that, walking out of the establishment in the middle of Boston, leaving my jacket inside, right? Left my jacket and my pride inside, because I was like, oh man, I can't go back in there and get this jacket. I'm in the t-shirt outside. It's 20 degrees. Calling a cab. I get home and sitting on my couch. I'm like, oh boy, what did I just do? I have a wife and 4 kids at the time. I just quit my job 2 weeks before Christmas, and I said, I'm just gonna sleep this one off till tomorrow and see what happens. Woke up that morning, jumped in my truck. I'm gonna go sit at Dunkin' Donuts and grab a coffee, and just hopefully my wife thinks I'm at work. And I was like, damn it, I gotta call around and see if I can get a job. No one was hiring, you know. And maybe after the new year we'll put you on, but at that point it was kind of sink or swim, right? I had to put food on the table. I had always done small side work. I had a little side gig going, a little hustle on the side. That hustle became prime time, you know, and it was January 2018 where I really started ripping and roaring. And I don't know if you guys remember that, but it was the polar vortex, right? It was really cold up here in the Northeast, and just by luck of the draw, you know, like I like to think that I'm super business savvy, but I think there's a bit of luck that goes with business. And that polar vortex froze everything up around here, and I was a pretty busy guy at that point, you know. And I just kind of ran with it, and here I am. You know, we've been in business for 4 years. We have 50 employees. We just finished 2022, $9.4 million in revenue. You know, is revenue a really important number? It's really what you keep. You know, we're still working on that number at the bottom, but I think we're in growth mode for sure. You know, and that's kind of where it all started.
Well, that's awesome, man. That's a really cool story.
I don't know if there's a better walking out of a bar story, you know. Well, that turned out well, right? That at the end of the day had a happy ending, or somewhat happy ending, right?
Yeah, and then like the company I left there, like, listen, I disagree with one person. Am I telling people to go, hey, go quit your job because you disagree with one person? I'm sure there's a better way for me to go about that. If I ran into that guy today, I haven't seen him since, I'd probably have to shake his hand, but that company was great. You know, if I hadn't had that conversation, I'd still be there today. You know, I made great money. I had a great gig. They were an awesome company to work for. It just, life goes on, right? Things happen and you move on.
Yeah, man. And you know, you mentioned luck is a big part of it. And, you know, maybe that plays a little bit. First of all, my pipes froze up during that damn vortex and my whole basement flooded. And I hired a new to me plumber to come help me. But, you know, luck only works if you've got the preparation and the balls to do something with it when it comes around. So don't sell yourself short on that end.
Yeah. I'm not one of those guys to pat myself on the back, you know, like, it definitely takes hard work, right? Like, we talk about it a lot around here. It's like, we just finished our 4th year, right? Like, I'm 33 years old. I try to think back to high school. What was high school to me? Like, I remember like the important parts, but like, it's all just a blur. It's just like a flash in the pan. I'm like, this is just the flash of the pan of this whole company, right? Like, what else do we got in store for us? You know, and it definitely takes some, I mean, listen, it took a lot of hard work, right? But hindsight's 2020. Like, I feel like it didn't take a lot of hard work. Like, the hard work's happening now. The hard work then was a lot real physical for sure. But a couple months later, you kind of forget about the physical pain and the roughness you got to do. It's just funny how life works like that, you know?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, and before we move to the business pieces, real quick, I want to touch on some hospital work because as a plumber in a hospital, most people think probably water pipes, but did you also touch like a lot of med gas and all the other piping that's within a hospital that most people might not think about because those are very complex spaces?
Yeah, so in Massachusetts, we have a state license. You hop on any sort of Facebook forum about plumbing, and everybody's doesn't pass in Mass, right? That's the big thing they like to say as far as plumbing groups go. It's a pretty strict state code. I probably have the book floating over there somewhere, but it's very Massachusetts specific. Inside the hospital, we did everything, like you said, wastewater, potable water, non-potable water, oxygen, nitrogen, air, whatever you name it. But yeah, we did all those. My crew actually, we did a lot of NICUs and a lot of massive shutdowns. And at the time I was the foreman, I was 28 years old, and we had a relatively young crew. I think like the oldest guy was 30 years old. It was a small crew. Like it was 5 guys, including myself. But we'd shut down NICU units, which young kids, ICUs, and we'd swap over these major med gas systems, and we got commendations from the hospital, and it was I there doing the work, yeah, but like at the end of the day, it was my team, and I think like my biggest thing, even in my company now, I like to let everybody know I'm just a B player. I hire A players, right? I want to surround myself with A players, make me shine because I'm just me, right? I'm just a B player, and I did that then. I think that translated to my business now. But plumbing is a serious business in the hospital. It's not about, hey, anybody can put the pipe in the hospital, but you got to care about that end user, right? You can buy a plumber, you can buy piping, but you can't buy that personality. It's a lot more relationship driven than just production driven. And it was super unique. And I to be honest, I loved it. It was awesome. I loved doing that job.
Yeah, before I quit my job and went on my own, I did a lot of hospital work, and it's it's super rewarding to do hospital work. Just the people that you're serving, and then I never did NICUs, but we did ORs, we did some other ICU floors. Like it's pretty rewarding, man. Like to be in those hospitals to chat with, a lot of end users, right? The nurses, the staff, like hospitals, and you get to see the same 5, 10 people, right? It's the same construction project managers, it's the same people kind of over and over, and really becomes a pretty tight knit community. But I just want to touch too on like, how for plumbing in particular, right? Most people think of their houses, and then you go to something like a hospital, and there's like 19 more systems and crucial things, right? Like oxygen to next to the bed, right? All the nitrogen, like there's a lot of gases that need to be, that are life-saving gases, right? To be delivered to every bed, every patient location within the building, and some in the middle of the hallways, right? To connect somebody to if they're having a problem. Like there's a lot of those kind of details that I think a lot of people you'll never notice until you need it, especially in a hospital.
Yeah. Listen, I have 4 kids. They still think I only replace toilets.
Yeah, like I will never take like hospital systems for granted. So I like pointing those things out, especially like how complicated they can be. But to move over to kind of the business side, like how long did it take you to hire your first guy?
So January 1st, 2018, I had put my notice in. It was like December 17th, right? I had quit my job, being cordial. I said, hey, listen, I know I run X amount of jobs at the hospital, right? 'Cause he always had multiple jobs running at the same time. I said, I'm going to come back for 2 weeks, leave on good terms. And I'm going to get whoever you want in here to come replace them. Let's do it. I'll show them the way what I'm doing. So I left there January 1st, 2018. I'm on my own, right? I got my white van. I got my couple jobs rolling in, and I don't know if anybody listening to this is a plumber, but it sucks working by yourself. Like you go insane talking to yourself in the van. So I actually had a guy who mowed my lawn, right? He did landscaping, and in the off season he'd do general labor, and then I was doing a job for a contractor, and I seen him and I said, "Hey, what are you doing here?" I didn't know he had done like this day laboring. He's like, "Oh, I just day labor for this guy in the off season." I said, "Oh." I said, "This guy's an asshole." I said, "You want to come day labor for me?" And he's like, "Yeah, sure. I don't even know if he has anything tomorrow." And he came on that day, and or the next day, and he's been here ever since. Right? He's kind of, I tell everybody he's my right hand man, because day 7, he likes to tell everybody he's here day 1. It was day 17, or day 13 or 17. Right? I let it know that it's day 13. But his name's John. He's been here. He's been pretty instrumental in the whole growth and development of the company. But he was the first person I ever hired. And after that, that was like out in the field. You hire that first person just to help you. He's a helper. The next biggest hire I made, I hired a lady, Mary. She's my bookkeeper. She actually had taken an early retirement, and she was probably the next most important and most integral piece to my business. And probably single-handed, I could say that's the only reason that I'm still in business, because she made sure the bills were paid, and she had retired early, taken an early retirement. And I knew her through one of my daughter's mothers, is her mother, and this, that, the next thing. She actually lives with my neighbor. She's my neighbor too. And I approached her. She was 69 at the time, and she'd been retired for 8 years. And I said, "Hey, Mary, I was looking for someone part-time, that can pay the bills and answer the phone." And she said, "Yeah, sure. I'll come in 3 days a week or whatever, 2 days a week, whatever you need, a couple hours." I rented an office space. She came in. To now she's 73. I'm trying to tell her, "You got to retire, right? Enough's enough." Like, I appreciate it. And now we're pacing to be over $15 million this year, and she's 73 running the books. I want her to go off and have a nice retirement, enjoy life, So she was probably the second biggest hire I ever made,
Especially with a service-based business with that many employees. I mean, that bookkeeper role is mission critical, man. Even with where I'm at with, we're a GC, so we're pretty low on the head count, but that role it's really important where I'm at. But when you have, 50 some odd people running around who all want to get paid, and all your supply bills and everything you got, that's a hard role to fill, but it's super, super important to have a great person there.
Absolutely. And I'll say it again, like, probably one of the most important roles we've had, and she's filled a big, huge hole for us. And, like, we've talked, and like, we're making this transition of her leaving, and she has a goal to leave, and she knows that she has to get out of here and go do a few things and enjoy her retirement. And it's a big plan to get her out of here, to make sure it's ready for the next person. And we just hit this point where we're projecting to do 17 million this year. I like to say 15, that way we don't crush our hopes and dreams. But it's a lot. It was a lot last year. I assume it's going to be a lot more this year.
Well, I want to get to your revenue goals here today, but while we're still talking about staffing, question we ask everybody is, how is your labor market there in the Boston area? You got 50 people on staff, so you can't be struggling that hard to find folks, but what does it look like out there? Are you seeing shortages in available skilled help?
I mean, I think everybody in the industry feels that. The one caveat I have, and I like to think I'm an anomaly, I came from commercial construction in the union, Local 12, which I'm a part of. We're signatory of 2 unions now. They kind of saw an opportunity to get into residential construction, a market share that they never had. So they designed a residential construction rate. I had no intention of getting into residential construction, but I saw it as a point where I could enter into union labor, have this high price point for field pay, still utilize this, but do something absolutely different that they've never seen. So I was able to we made service at this residential union rate. And with that, am I saying they have every answer that I needed? Absolutely not. But what it did, it created something that guys in the residential sector never had, right? What do they get coming into the union? Well, they get a decent pay, right? The pay is bargained, but then they have health insurance that's 100% employee paid for. They have a pension, they have an annuity, they have an end game, right? And it's all paid for in their package. And for me, does it come at the cost of the business? I guess, like, if you're not running your business right, yeah, of course it hits the profit. But if you price yourself right, like, I mean, I could buy a helicopter if I price myself right, but you know, like, who's going to find the customer that wants to pay that price? But I'm fine with losing a couple points in profit if it means I can put my head down at night and these guys are happy with what they're getting, and I don't have to think about, hey, I nickel and dimed them on that, you know. So we're able to attract a lot of talent, you know. I think right now, holistically, is the talent lacking? Of course, like we've neglected the trades for the past 30 years. You know, we're gonna see a skills gap here. I'm 33. The average age of a plumber in Massachusetts is 57. You know, we're in for a roller coaster the next 5 to 8 years. You know, and I don't know what the answer is. We're trying to figure that out here. So when that roller coaster happens, we're a solution, and we're not piling on to the problem. So we've been able to establish a steady flow of guys. With that being said, there's still a lot of skills lacking just in the residential sector for us in this area, because in this area that's very union driven. You know, it's just, we're a small state. It's not, you can live pretty far away and still commute to Boston, you know, and it's kind of like you're a small mom and pop shop where you work here, but your goal is to always get to the union in the city would make the big bucks. So we're trying to twist that narrative and make so you can work closer to home. Make, you know, maybe you're not making the biggest bucks, but you're still making decent bucks, you know. But that work-life balance and that commute is kind of removed from the. I mean, at the end of the day, I drove an hour and a half to work every day, and I hated it. You know, I lived in the city for a long time, married my wife, had kids, and then hour and a half commute with traffic. That's 3 hours you never get back every day of your life, you know?
Oh yeah.
So we're trying to change that narrative, and that's how we're able to keep guys coming in, you know? And we have a lot of work to do as far as what we can offer the employee, I think. And at the end of the day, they have the upper hand in this market, and it's nothing that we created, but it's something that society created, right? And something we're gonna have to deal with.
Yeah. We talk about this constantly on the show, and excuse me. I get going on a little whirlwind tirade when I start going on this road, but I mean, we've allowed ourselves as a society to just crush the trades. And you said it, you know, you called it a roller coaster. I think it's going to be more like a like a cliff. We're all approaching real fast, but it's coming. And if folks aren't doing, you know, something to make it better, it's going to be inevitable. And so to see you know, and your plan, I love that, you know, trying to keep guys where they live or keep them closer where they live. That's huge. We had Dillon and I had a couple guys on previously, and they said, like, I think their commute was 2 hours one way. I mean,
they're commuting.
They loved it
from Long Island into Manhattan, so it's like an hour and a half, 2 hours. You know, the Brizzy brothers, and to that point, right? Like, that's rough. And I've driven in a lot of places, and New York is not a place I really want to drive. You know, Bay Area traffic sucks for like San Francisco and stuff. And they can't drive. I can't imagine, you know, pissed off New Yorkers or, you know, Bostonites or, you know, New Englanders, man.
It's not even like the drive, right? Like, I could drive 40 miles, but it's the damn traffic, right? It's the nodding back and forth, stop and go. And that shit will put you to sleep. Like, you're driving, you know, and it'll put you to sleep, but you're angry.
I built a couple stores in a previous life in the Boston area, and I was terrified the first time I had to drive around downtown, man. I'm not kidding you. Like, you guys have those underground highway systems that I can't even describe.
Yeah.
Like that shit was new to this Midwest boy, and I could do without it.
Yeah, it's there's that meme, right? Like, I think it's like, it shows the grid of New York City and how, you know, you have A, B, C, all the abs, and then it's like Boston, and it's just a bunch of scribbles, a bunch of horse lanes and all this stuff. It's just because fuck you.
Definitely.
One thing I do want to come back to on labor, and yeah, you mentioned paying a couple more points for your guys and people, right, to have union guys come in and do residential. The thing too that I don't think you might be paying above you know, minimum wage, right? And those are the points that you're talking about. But the thing that I think you're also missing is because you're going through the union hall, you now don't have, like, you have your union dues, sure, but like you don't have the cost to attract and retain and also to train a lot of people. And that's, I think, a big piece that gets missed a lot, is the recruiting costs for, skilled trades. Is the union's really good at that. And you're probably, and I don't have the numbers on it, I don't think anybody's ever really run it, but what like, I know in trucking it's 12 grand to attract and recruit a driver, right? Between like just recruiting fees and bonuses and all the other stuff to bring somebody in, and like ads and all the things that they need to do to run to do that, right? And like you start adding that up, and turnover and everything else, like, and some of those like trucking companies have 75%, 100% turnover, which is just like insane. But this is like the good side of the union. Like, I'm not going to get into political things of unions, but I think the union is really great at training and providing very skilled talent into labor pools, and that is what they are very good at doing. And kudos to you for having that, and then kudos to the mass and local 12 to do the residential thing. That's a big deal, and opening that up to, again, provide a very skilled trade into the residential market. Like, I'd be super happy to have a guy that's like union I know that he knows what he's doing when he comes to my house.
Yeah, like you said, politics aside, right? Whether you're for the unions or against the unions, I had that debate with myself, right? Like, I left a union position, and there's a 6-month window that you have this bank of hours, right? I have a family of 6, and I know I have 6 months, and after 6 months, my health insurance runs out. So it was at the 6th month, I was like, oh shit, I gotta either get back into the union, or I gotta go buy some health insurance. And I was like, I'm either gonna pay the devil I do know or the devil I don't know, but one way I'm paying somebody, And I just said, hey, I'm just gonna get back onto it, and that's kind of how the union stuff, it kept going. I was from the union. I saw the benefits of it. When I was younger, my father was non-union. I saw him get into the union. We had lived in apartments until he got to the union. Then he got in the union. We moved into a house. I was like, at that age, I didn't understand it. But now hindsight, I see it. I'm like, God, beneficially, it's just, you can look at statistics and reports, like the wage of a non-union versus union guy, it's always a little higher, right? And like you said, politics aside, I think for the worker, it's beneficial, right? And I'm willing as the owner to take that hit. I'd rather them. We're in a workforce where they own it, right? I'd rather them be happy than be mad, because if they're mad, they're going somewhere else, because there's a million other opportunities if I can't offer it.
100%. That makes total sense. And then again, like that, you have that they're qualified, right? Coming through the, like,
yeah,
that's,
I think the residential division itself, it's a new thing. Like, so local 12 was our primary signatory union that we pull labor from. Their original agreement's like 150 or 180 years old, right? This residential agreement is 7 years old, and my company's 4. So like, there's a lot of growth and development to it, and they're still trying to figure it out. And I'm trying to be the leader and trying to help them with it, and I try and keep a super cordial relationship, because I need them just as much as they need me. And I think that's something that's lacking. So now we've also signed on with other locals, and they see a benefit to it, right? Like, the union structure is very much like local politics. You have your state level, your local level, state level, and then international level. And the international says, hey, we like that, let's do it. But you guys got to figure out how to do it. And that's the local level that we deal with. And, they're like, hey, what do you want us to do? We don't know how to do it. So if I have to be that instrument to help them do it, I'm all for it, as long as we can all see it's a viable resource to produce hours, produce money, produce income for people, put people to work,
Well, and you're helping blaze a new trail, right? I don't think, the unions are still around the Detroit area for sure, but I don't think there is a single family residential geared union in any trade here. We have residential, but it's only once you get up into multifamily and, apartments and senior living, that kind of thing. So
yeah,
that's pretty cool to be kind of driving that ship with them.
Right. And then just go back to my roots. We actually for 2022 started another company. So Blue Bear Home Services Residential, and I started C. Murphy Plumbing and Mechanical, which is also a signatory shop that's going to focus on Commercial tenant fit out and multi-res construction, you know, and that'll go back to the roots of what Local 12 and what I came from, you know. That's just like a piece of me that I'm like, I really like doing it. I don't want to give it up, you know?
Yeah. So that's kind of an interesting point then. So you're going to be operating on a residential side and a commercial side. Are your guys interchangeable, or are you hiring a whole new
No.
staff for the commercial side?
It'll be a whole new staff, and that's where me and the union get together and fight. You know, it's I can understand it's two different rates, you know, they don't want to intertwine them. Obviously, they don't want certain contractors have to bid at this high rate, and then Chris is coming along at the lower rate and winning all the jobs, you know.
Right.
But it's two different rates, so it is what it is, you know. Those are the rules I got to play by, you know. Some rules aren't meant to be broken.
Which goes back to how important that bookkeeper is, right?
Yeah.
I mean, this makes so much sense, right? Like it's, one is understanding the rules of the game, right? And that's a pretty like cut and dry. Like if you're going to use that labor pool, these are the rules. This is, you know, and then we need to have conversations around some of these different things. And I think more often than not, that's where people take a wrong step. They're not willing to have those conversations or willing to take leadership positions like you are, you know, to help figure this whole thing out, right? Like, especially something new on the residential side, you know, commercial, obviously being 180 years old, it's pretty well established, you would say, but is to have these conversations around, you know, these different things, right? And how do we figure this out? Like, how do we work through this together? You know, we want the same end goals, right? You want to hire great people. The union wants to employ people in companies that are great to work for, right? It's a very simple thing. And I just, you know, applaud you on one, taking that leadership role, and two, having like the great communication, you know, and starting something else and allowing that communication to be forged, to, you know, yeah, you're going to have disagreements, but you gotta have the conversation first.
If you're not having disagreements, you're not growing, right? Like there's a book, The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team. It's called Constructive Conflict. We kind of love that stuff here.
Or you can say you're not in construction if you're not.
Yeah. That's a good slide into what I wanted to ask you next. You know, you said you did about 9 million last year, and you're looking to do, whether you call it 15 or 17 this year. So I mean, that's some pretty massive fucking growth, man. To go from 0, you know, 4 years ago to 9, and now you're gonna, you know, almost double that again. That's really significant growth. So I got to ask you, because selfishly, I'm going through the same kind of route with my company. How have you been able to keep the holes in the boat from stretching out so big that you're taking on too much water and you're sinking? You know, like, we're seeing growing pains, right? Mm-hmm. Just candidly, we're seeing the holes in the boat stretch out, and that water's coming in so fast now that, you know, there's areas that if I don't direct focus immediately to it, you know, we're all gonna drown. So what have you done, and how you've been able to kind of temper that? Because obviously you're doing it because you're still floating.
So this is an extensive answer. So the 17 million comes from a budget, and the budget was put in place by a guy, Kevin. He's one of my operations managers, and he grinded out this budget for months. And that's why I say 15, because you know, like, do I want to hit the budget? Absolutely. We want to kill the budget, because if we hit the budget, it's going to be our most profitable year yet. But you know, it's February. We're starting to hit shoulder season. I'm like, maybe we're not going to hit it, you know, because we're starting to see that. We'll see a dip this month, but you know, we'll have to kill it in the prime time. But how do we get there, right? How did we get, you know, the first year we did 636 when it was me and John. How do we get from 636 to 2.2 to 6.8 to 9.4, now hopefully 17? The biggest part has been, to circle back, is like who you hire, who you surround yourself with, right? I'm that B player. I've always been that B player. It's your team, man. It's 100% your team. And then having, you know, like, be like, oh, you had some balls to start the company. Yeah, I guess, right? I guess I did, but it's having the balls to let go of the reins sometimes too, and let people grow and let people figure it out. And, you know, I'm a B player. I'm definitely not that smart. You know, like, there's definitely people who are smarter than me. You know, how about you let the other people who are a little smarter than you run something? And that's why my 3 key people a lot of like the important conversations, just there's four of us just hashing it out, and that's where that constructive conflict comes, do we always agree? No. Does it usually end in an argument? Typically, but like we hash something out and we get to the bottom line. And it's, a lot of people, what's your success? What's your success? Well, first of all, it's my team who holds me accountable, who helps build this, could I do this all myself? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. And then we just go to work every day. Like these guys have great work ethic. I have one guy, John, he's probably the most emotionally intelligent person I've ever met. He can read somebody and understand how to interact with them, diffuse a situation. I have Kevin, he's probably a better operator than I am, smarter dude, built a budget, did this, did that. And then I have Patty, she runs my office. She's probably a harder worker than I ever was. If she doesn't know it, she's going to work damn hard to figure it out. She usually does. So those are like my three key people. They all have their certain attributes, and it's not because like my wise wisdom, I picked these people up because they had them. It just so happened they panned out, and that's how it worked, and that's how we've been successful. So our next step from 9 to 17, what's that mean? I've told my team that they need to develop their team, and now they'll have teams underneath them, and this is your mid-level management, and that's kind of our next step. You go through these progressions of steps.
Yep.
And things get lost in those steps, but these massive growth points, they plateau, then they grow. And we're probably in one of these massive growth points. And will we lose people? I'm sure we will. Hopefully no key people, but people don't like change, right? And as long as we're maintaining our plan and our trajectory and what we plan on doing the next 5 years and the next 8 years, there's no stopping us. We just go to work every day, right? There's no tricks to this pony. It's just go to work every day.
That may be the best answer to it I've ever heard.
Just a B player, man.
Well, and so in our initial conversation, so talk about one of the things with you being a new company, in Massachusetts, right? There's a lot of ingrained people they call their tried and true guy. How have you kind of cracked into that market, for lack of a better term, and get trust?
Yeah. So like I had lunch, and I don't want to take credit for this because I didn't say it, but after I heard it, I was like, oh man, that's a really good hypothesis, and I had lunch, not a direct competitor, but some guy on the North Shore, and we're talking about, hey, out in California, there's these 50, 100 truck companies, down in Texas, down in Phoenix, Florida. How come there's not these 100 truck companies in Massachusetts or the Northeast in that area? And this is what he said. He said, I think it has to do with generationally. There's probably 6 to 7 to 8 generations of families in the Northeast, right? It's the birthplace of America. The first shot was fired in the Revolutionary War, this, that, the next thing. And then you go out to Phoenix and California, you might have maybe 1 or 2 generations, there's a lot of transplants out there. And you have this sector of people like, hey, my dad used Joe as for his plumber, then Joe's son became a plumber, and now he's my plumber. And then when my kids grow up, Joe's kid will be their plumber, and you have a lot of this, I don't know, it's not collusion, but that's who you use, right? Because that's who my dad used, that's who my mom used, that's who we use. And that it just cultivated this culture of 1 and 2 man truck shops around here. And being in the hardened New England, Massachusetts people that we are, we don't like change, right? Like I literally just said it because I deal with it in my company. Nobody likes change, especially us, right? This is how it's been. We're not changing it. This works fine. Don't change it. And then enter us, right? Chris, he wants to have a 50, 100 truck shop here operating out of Massachusetts. So what's going to change that? I think the way people purchase stuff is changing. You have millennials who just became the first 2 years ago. They bought more homes than baby boomers. How do millennials react? How do they operate? I'm a millennial. There's a book called Not Everybody Wins a Trophy, right? It goes through the whole millennial generation, how they operate, what they want to do. I know myself, I don't even know how many subscriptions I have, right? Like I have to go into my bank account and go, oh, we're still subscribed to that, and what does a millennial want? They want like ease of use, right? Like when my Netflix is down, I know it's going to get fixed. I just know I pay a monthly fee and it's going to be fixed, right? So how do we bring that to the trades, right? Because for the majority of millennials, they have white collar jobs, right? We just talked about there's this skills gap for 30 years. We've come out of college, so most millennials fall into that white collar job. You know, who wants to deal with that furnace that doesn't work anymore? Don't worry about it. We're going to put you on a subscription plan. You're going to be a premium member. When that thing goes down, you give us a call. We're going to come out and fix it. You know, you don't have to do much more than that. Who wouldn't love that? You know, we're not at that point yet, but how awesome would it be to hit it in your app? Because then you don't even have to talk to somebody, you know? So I think that's how we're going to break the stigma. I don't think we're doing anything. I think just culturally, it's going to change it itself, you know, because then you change that. The millennials, it's funny, like if you got, not that I'm like a psychologist or anything, but you read these books about how they purchase and how they interact. I mean, I say they, and I'm one, right? Like, how do I do it? And it's just really interesting. And I think that's really what's going to change the tide of how purchasing happens, even just in commercial construction, right? Commercial construction, they're starting to take over. The boomers are retiring, you know, the millennials are moving into those premier spots, project managers and everything, and everything's just changing. And you have to latch on to how that millennial generation is going to do business. And I think that's how you can launch yourself into the future and into prosperity, hopefully. It's a really long-winded answer.
No, but it makes a lot of sense, man. I mean, you got to cater to the people that you're relying on, right? Whether they're your employees, your customers, or otherwise. So to figure out the psychology behind that and try and not necessarily play off of it, but just understand it enough that you can utilize it to your favor. That's key. Yeah.
And to cater to people's wants, right? It's a lot easier to cater to people's wants than their needs, to be honest with you, right? Just because we're in residential, right? We live in the Northeast where heat's a necessity, right? When it's 2 degrees out, I need that boiler firing or that furnace firing, you know? I need it. I don't want it, but I need it. But when it's hot out and I'm sweating my ass off in my house, I want that AC. I'm ready to spend the money on that. Not so much on the boiler, but the AC, I'm all in, you know? Like, I predetermined that I want to spend 20 grand on a new AC system this year. I didn't predetermine I needed to put it in a new heating system, you know? We see that, the wants and needs. So if you play off the wants of people, and, you know, millennials want something different than what boomers wanted, right? And that book that I mentioned, Now Everybody Wins a Trophy, there's like 4 or 5 things that millennials want, like even from workforce perspective, right? They want to know that they're valued in their work industry. They want to make great money. They want to have awesome work-life balance. And they want to know what they're doing is making a change, right? So I take those 4 things, and I'm like, oh, you take like 3 of those things and kind of put them into a union, right? They want to be a part of a big organization, make a change, and have this awesome work-life balance. I said the union kind of provides those things, you know. So there you go. There's your workforce. Now you got to take that, and the hard part is figuring out how the consumer wants it, right? And that's kind of where we're at now, trying to figure it all out.
There's a ton of pieces in there. So one of the things too, like when you talk about subscriptions and membership and things like that, it's been around for a long time in a lot of other industries. Construction just never latched onto it. It was always pay for use. You know, like we pay whenever we deliver a service, right? Or that was how we always interpreted it, versus like a on call, right? I got a guy and I call my guy. I've already paid my guy, and it's done. And it's just something that, you know, can be very easily put into place, especially for like service contracts, right? For HVAC and plumbing and a lot of those things, right? Like can be fairly easily put into place. Matt, you're going to have a harder time on a subscription basis as a GC, but for sure on service, right? Like that's a fairly easy thing to people understand what they get. You know, you got to bundle your services in there. But a subscription model, when it comes to those types of services and maintenance contracts, like maintenance contracts have been around for a long time. We never called them, you know, platinum memberships, right? There was always a membership or a maintenance contract, right? And just to bring in some of like the different wording, different vocabularies to make it seem like, you know, this is cool, not like, oh, this is the get your, you know, AC turned on in the summer membership, you know, club, right? Like not some boring thing, but something that's kind of exciting that, you know, people feel good about buying, right? Like a maintenance contract never sounds fun, but a, you know, platinum membership, that sounds great.
Yeah, man, it's an exclusive club, right? It's, I mean, as far as the memberships go, it's, what's that membership offer, right? We're a premium service. Not everybody gets this service. We're not everybody's plumber. We're not everybody's HVAC technician. We're not everybody's drain cleaner. We offer a premium. We have a certain way when you call in here and how we handle business, right? You're not calling Chuck in the truck. I'm not answering my cell phone. I'm not telling you I'll be there at 4 and I show up at 6 while you're in the middle of dinner, right? There are people who deal with booking your call, letting you know when someone's coming. That guy's coming. He's in a uniform, right? Why is he in a uniform? A lot of people wear white uniforms. People are like, oh, you're a plumber. Why are you wearing that? Well, that's exactly why I'm wearing it. Because why is it okay for you to say I'm just going to show up with my ass crack hanging out? Why was that okay? Why is that stereotype okay now? It's not okay for me to wear a button-down shirt anymore, right? Like there was a time where it was the plumber and the doctor, and then it went the plumber and the doctor, and I guess that's my personal vendetta, is to raise the trades up, right? If I can do my company right and be successful in paying guys more and changing the image, I hope that at least that tide raises somebody else up. I hope somebody else catches on and wants to do business the same way. For far too long, guys go out there, they don't know how to price themselves, they don't know how to communicate with customers, and that's been how we deal with the trades, right? Because when you charge more than $200, Mrs. Jones like, why is it so expensive? Because Joe down the street charges that. I know Joe down the street lives in a shack, right? Like he shows up in that shitbox van that leaks oil all over the driveway too, So it's an exclusive club. It's a membership. We are definitely going to service you. Your customer's chosen to do business with you, and we choose to make sure that you are satisfied further than the next customer that's just calling us because they want to. It's the Costco model. I don't know if you've ever watched anything on the Costco model, but Costco sells stuff on massive quantities, right? They sell hot dogs for $1, and we have Stop and Shop. That's our big supermarket around here. They sell hot dogs for $1.25. Why? Because Costco wants your membership. They don't care about selling hot dogs. They care about selling memberships, and it's an interesting model, because then once you have that membership sold, you have a consumer that's going to buy. You're not hunting for the next guy and the next guy and the next guy.
This is some really fantastic tactical shit we've gone through today so far, man. That's to put it into a little bit of perspective of what you're doing, you're taking the trades, which everybody knows what trades do, all right, and your own personal mission to build them up is shining through so much that you're pulling from like various different industries, right? There have been industries doing this for decades, what you're talking about, but never in a trade-based model. And so you're grabbing up all these great aspects of all these different specific and different industries and pushing them into the trades for the sole reason of building the trades. You're going to soar with this, man. Like there is no way you lose, because you've got the heart. You can see that when you're talking about it. You've got the mission, which is obviously way, way bigger than just putting money in your own wallet, and it's even bigger than just your 50 some employees, because now you're breaching out, and it's not just helping Blue Bear and helping C. Murphy plumbing. It's helping the entire damn construction industry as a whole. And that is one of the core tenets of what Dillon and I are even doing this show for, period. So it's always refreshing to hear guys have that mindset, but I don't think I've ever heard it expressed in quite the way you just did.
Yeah, I mean, listen, do I want to be filthy rich? Absolutely, right? But I think I just hope that's a byproduct for everything we do. To think that I'm gonna snap of the fingers, build a company and be filthy rich, I don't think that's ever gonna happen. I think this is just a vehicle to make the industry move, for sure. And it's exciting. Like when I first started, I'd probably say I was a little misconstrued, thinking I was going to make it rich, and that was what my primary thing was. But now that I'm in the weeds of it, and this is my career, this is my job, the trajectory has definitely changed as to what the goal is, right? Because you're 100% right. If you hit this goal, other things are just going to fall into place correctly, And what I'm doing is a small part. There's bigger players in this industry doing bigger stuff than I am, right? And I'm not even super intuitive to changing stuff. I read a lot. I graduated high school. That's all I did, so I read a lot, I listen a lot, and I just try and implement stuff that I hear that works, and I don't know, it's been somewhat successful so far. I don't want to, not trying to play it down by any means, but I mean, it's a work in progress. It's 4 years in, you know, it's a flash in the pan. Like I said, it's high school. We just did high school, you know, on to life now.
So one of the points, like you mentioned 3-4 books, you mentioned that you read a lot, right? Like how many books did you read last year?
So last year, I hated reading. I don't even like reading, to be honest with you. But I did 75 hard. I didn't finish. I got 68 hard. The Andy Frisella program. But that's when I really started reading. And then I had a couple people in the office. We were doing it. Kevin finished 75 hard. I lost some money to him, but that's when I always started reading. And then he'd read a book, I'd pick it up. He'd read a book, we'd pass the book around. Everybody would grab a book. We go out to these better business practices out in Minnesota all the time. It's usually like, hey, I'm gonna take a book for the plane ride, you know. How many books do I read? I mean, I'd like to say I read once a month, but one a month. But realistically, it's like I go in these sprees, and when I go in the sprees, I have an Audible playing while I'm driving. I'm reading a book at night. You know what I mean? I'm kind of like one of these guys that just take the information like from a fire hydrant, and I hope I just take a couple sips out of it, and then I'll burn myself out on reading. I wish I could be one of those guys that's like, I consistently read, but I don't, you know, but I consistently consume, right? If I'm not reading, I'm listening to a podcast, and it's not a podcast about like, not a fictional podcast. It's just business and self-development podcast. That's all I ever listen to. Even to the point, like I'll be at the gym and I'm like, what the hell am I doing? I'm listening to a podcast while I'm lifting weights. Like, what happened to you, Chris? So I don't know, I'd say roughly like between 10 and 12 books a year, and then whatever plays in the Audible. Like I have 3 Audible books going on right now at once, which is not helpful. Like you lose storylines, you lose what's going on, but it's all information at the end of the day, you know?
Yeah, I mean, it's just how you process it. Like you said, you know, it's as long as you're implementing something on what you're hearing, reading, you know, or seeing, then you're doing the right thing. You know, I was the same way. I didn't read for shit from probably the time I got out of high school until I started 75 hard a couple of years ago. And now I don't read nearly as much as Dillon here, but I don't think most people do. But I'd read as much as I can, right? But the key to me is grabbing nuggets out of everything I'm putting in my head and doing something with it versus just letting it fizzle and fade.
Yeah, I think like you see all these posts on Facebook groups. Oh, what books should I read starting a business? You know, you get your generic ones, the E-Myth, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, all these books. And I read them all, right? And at the time, I was like, I don't know what the hell working on your business, not in your business even means, dude. I just need a paycheck today. And like, so you put that in the back of your brain, like, yeah, whatever, on to the next book. Rich Dad, Poor Dad, assets and liabilities. Okay, whatever, dude, need a paycheck, you know, next book. And, you know, you keep reading, then you get better at business. You read these books, you start understanding stuff, and then you're like, holy shit, I should probably go back and reread that book that I kind of didn't really understand, that it clicks now, you know, like, so I'm actually going back to books that I read in the beginning and rereading them, you know, and I'm not one of those guys. Like I watch a movie, I don't watch it ever again, you know, so now for me to go back and read a book, like, I don't know, obviously there's some value in there for me, you know, I'm a one and done guy.
Yeah.
You got 4 kids, so that's not true. But that's a really good point, man. Like it's going back and, you know, like how much information did you retain on the first reading of it? And then what could you actually use out of it? Right. And I think for a lot of people, it's trying to think of being a little more selective in what book you read, you know, like going into a Facebook group and asking is like, I mean, it's drinking from a fire hose, and they don't know where you are. Right.
Mhm.
So then it's on you to figure out what's the book that you need for today. Right. What's the information you need to get to the next step, and not to like jump to the top of the ladder. Right. Like, and there is taking the elevator, but it's also like, what is the book that you need today? What is the problem you need to solve today or in the next 3 months or month or whatever? But what is the thing that's going to help you today that you need to be reading? And then read it till you understand it, which is going to take more than once. And that's, you know, I think a big thing for a lot of people. And then to read the multiple books on the same topic around whatever it is you're trying to figure out. So if it's marketing, you need to read 2, 3, 4 marketing books that again have been vetted on whatever it is you're trying to figure out. Same thing on operations, you know, and you can go through 2, 3, 4, you know, like E-Myth, Traction, rocket fuel, like those are all operations books, and you go around those and then go to the next thing. So I think it's on the right path, and obviously you retain enough to be able to rattle these things off, and do them pretty easily. So again, like kudos, man. Like it's a big deal. And you can see like that's probably a big contributor to, the growth you've seen too.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people that get into like you go to the E-Myth, like you're a technician, you get into the trade, you're like, I'm gonna figure out this. And I think he's probably 100% right with that. And I think you just got to inundate yourself with a bunch of stuff that you don't know, right? And you're like, oh man, I thought I knew this and I don't know any of it. Like I'm screwed, right? And you start, like you said, pulling nuggets. Like I'm just gonna try that one thing. Oh shit, that worked. Let me go to the next chapter and see what was in that, and let me see if that worked. And just you apply it piece by piece, and just I don't know. Books are interesting because, like for me, like I don't live in the real time of books, but it's like hindsight is always, oh, that book said that, right? Oh yeah, that book. It's like for me, I'm never like, oh, that book just smacked me in the face today, and I have the solution to the problem at hand. It's always, oh, that's what that book was talking about. This thing that just popped up today, and I think a lot of people get in the trade, they hop on, they want that silver bullet that tells them how to do business. And there is no silver bullet, man. I've been looking for it for 4 years.
Let me know if you ever find it. All right.
Chris, where can they find you?
So you guys can find me. I'm on LinkedIn, Facebook. It's just my name. I don't even know my LinkedIn name. It's Chris Murphy.
It'll be in the bio.
Check us out check us out at bluebearplumbing.com. But anybody wants to email me questions, cmurphy@bluebearplumbing.com, cmurphy@cmurphyplumbingandpnm.com, and then I'm a pretty transparent guy. So if like anybody has any questions, everybody's on the trajectory doing what I'm doing. My shop's open for competitors. I let them come in here. Not that I'm lighting the world on fire by any means, but I'm an open book, dude. Because if I'm not an open book, I can't expect you to be on the next page, So if anybody wants to reach out to me. I'm more than happy. I sat down with a competitor right before this. That's why I was late with the bio. Just walking him through Service Titan, the CRM program we use. He wanted to know how to use just track his phone calls. And I worked it out with him, right? Like, cool. It's like, that's my secret. It's not my secret, but I'm willing to help you, so.
That's a great way to do business, man. So perhaps the most important question, are you a Dropkick Murphys fan? And have you ever been to McGreevy's?
McGreevy's is closed now.
Oh no.
I am a Dropkick Murphys fan back in my heyday. I actually am more of a Street Dogs fan, and I am YouTube famous for the Street Dogs. I don't know, maybe around 19, 20, 21. There's a YouTube video of me going off into the stage. So yeah. But,
nice.
Street Dogs, Mike McCooligan was the lead singer for the Dropkick Murphys. And then he went to the Street Dogs and so on and so forth. Yep. Hey, I dabble in them. Yeah.
But McGreevy's is gone, huh?
Yeah. I mean, Boston took a hit with COVID. Like, I used to work in downtown Boston every single day. And then obviously I opened up on the South Shore here. And I didn't go to Boston. And then obviously I pop in there. I actually lived in the city for a while. And I went there, I don't know, it was during COVID. Like obviously we got some pretty heavy COVID restrictions and all that. They still have them in town. And you'd walk down Boylston Street, the street with all the bars. I'm like, oh man, they're all closed, And I don't know, I think the restaurant industry they got screwed. They got the short end of the stick for sure,
Oh, yeah.
And it sucks for them, and it's funny, you go back into where your stomping grounds were, where you went every single day of your work career, and you're like, oh, all that stuff's gone, Yeah, closed down.
Ah, bummer. That was a cool place.
Yeah.
Final words, Chris, before I close this out here.
My biggest thing is, I think, from union or non-union, the home services industry is it's a market that's heating up. There's massive mergers and acquisitions going on. It's probably an industry that gets kicked by the trades, right? You're a residential plumber. I'm a commercial plumber. I do industrial stuff, and You know, it's definitely, are there mechanical skills involved with that stuff? Absolutely. What is it on the residential side? It's a lot more communication and human skills than anything, right? And that's kind of where my history in the hospital to where I'm at now kind of translated and worked out really well. What we like to say is we do customer service, and plumbing and HVAC is just a small portion of what we do, you know? So I think that residential services aren't a viable source of income or a business model that you can't get on, like, I'm here to prove you wrong.
Keep on proving it, man. You're
All
doing a
right.
good job. It was great having you on the show, Chris.
I appreciate it, fellas.
All right, guys, we covered a ton today, and we've gone from the trades doing an awesome job showing up in collar, clean shirt, to really bring it across that this is a profession, right? You're a professional showing up at the door. You're not grimy, greasy with a broken down van parking in the driveway, right? Like, you are here to do a service and be the best possible version of yourself that you are. Chris, you've exemplified a lot of these traits today, and building a team. You're humble about it, and man, you're doing really well. Proud of you. Obviously, if you hear from a distance, but just you've done a great job, man, in a short period of time, putting other people first, doing the right thing. Helping the trades out, helping the union, and doing more than, frankly, a lot of people. Getting better through reading and passing those lessons on to not only your team, but the community at large, both through the union and for having competitors over to walk them through stuff, man. So big hats off to you guys. Go follow Chris in his journey. I'll put all the links in the show notes here. And Chris, thank you so much for coming on, man. I really enjoyed our time together. Obviously, Matt did here too today. So thank you so much for coming. And guys, that is this episode of the Construction Corner Podcast.